areas that you actually concentrate on, I guess, specifically to date?
Well, in terms of religion, I actually don't teach any religion, nor do I have one. So when I'm really extracting from any religious paradigm, I'm really more speaking to 9 times out of 10 what may have the person in bondage. So, being one who studied the Quran, and I've studied the Bible and the Torah, I might speak, depending on the group of people that I'm speaking to, I'll speak about the messianic concept, and relate that to my teaching, because even when people get into even indigenous or occult teachings, oftentimes they looking for a Messiah, even if it's a spirit, and they say, okay, well, this spirit has spoken to me, and now I'm going to do all this work with this particular spirit, so it's going to save me from this situation. Well, that form of thinking comes from religious indoctrination, that something flying in the sky actually cares if you stump your toe, and it loves you, and it's crying and weeping when you're weeping. And so I extract those elements and explain where that comes from and how to defeat it. But I can honestly say that with the exception of the scriptures that have been put forth in various religious systems, there's really nothing that I use in order to move forward. There are things that I use and I break down in order to free people up. Now, there are certain systems that I really enjoy. I love the tradition in South Africa. It's a tradition that I really love to be a part of, and I love when I'm doing work with Sangoma. I love the fire-baptized movements, in the U.S., the Deep Woods, fire-baptized. I love the energy. There's various things from different systems. Some systems, they mainly deal with study, and there's no emotive spirituality that's given forth. Some systems only deal with the emotional, spiritual movements, and there's really no study. So I kind of have amalgamated the best parts of different religions and created my own system, which is called the ANU system.
That you would actually instill upon
but that's all I've really been able to
really
glean
is seeking
at
some spiritual path.
Mm-hmm. One of the first things I established is really teaching people the difference between spiritual education and spiritual training. Religion is training. I'm going to teach you how to do certain things because it profits me to establish a certain order and conformity. Whereas if I educate you spiritually, all I'm doing is reaching down into your center and pulling out what's inside and showing it to you so you can manifest more of that, whatever that thing is. So, and it may not have anything to do with my system. By the time we get down in it, you may realize, okay, I got to go. I have to go do something else. I'm really supposed to just be focused on crystals. That's supposed to be my thing, So the first thing I get people into is really having a level of acceptance and respect for what they have already come to the table with. Understanding that everything that they've at this point is a part of a divine mythology. So if they're a person who likes to eat certain types of food, or they find themselves always wearing a certain type of color, or they like a certain type of music, I start dissecting that. Well, let's figure out why that is from a spiritual and soul level, because that's your soul expressing itself and expressing itself as a god or goddess. So we start there. I also make sure my students understand to never get stuck in one thing. And what I mean by that is, you can start studying one aspect of occult information, or even studying one deity or one archetype, and you can fall extremely in love with it. This is very common in the Orisha tradition, where people are said to have different Orisha who rule their heads. So let's say if one has Oya, let's say Oya rules a person's head, that's how it's said, then a person studying Oya and really trying to become Oya, to a degree. And Oya is similar to Sintala Ndoki. She's a woman of storms. She's a modern-day representation would be Tina Turner. That's an Oya figure. She's the jilted lover, and she owns the wind, lightning, as well as the marketplace. But the problem with that is that the only thing that really rules and owns your head is your own soul. So if you spend your life getting stuck at Oya, then you don't get to understand all the other Orisha who really are lesser entities compared to your own soul. So now you re-enslave yourself underneath the bondage and the self-imposed worship, but now I'm of a lesser. I can't do what I really want to do because I've caged myself in to external expectation. So many of the people who study with me who are at that level, they actually study, in secrecy. And some of the things that we talk about is how they can slowly start introducing a higher form of learning to their students or godchildren who.
I see. Well, I hope I don't see you because I don't go to, but I hope no one sees you at a 12-step process in any particular.
This life is a 12-step process. We're already in it. We should be embarrassed enough.
If I do see you coming out of a particular place, I'll just keep on walking like a.
Oh no! Don't do that. That means I was probably in there helping someone.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well,
or I need to use their phone or something.
Take it from there. Well, with that, I was wondering, what are some of the things that you do see in some of the people that you've encountered who have been in the particular systems for a very long time that you can possibly help other people, let's just say, avoid? Because from what I can see in many different systems and paths and, faiths, religion, whatever you want to call it, many times people, let's just say, convert or go the other way because it's not giving them what they want. And sometimes I do feel that it's not so much just it not giving them what they want, but they don't know exactly how to apply or to really filter that into, that's not the only book they have to read.
Well, that's what you just said is one of the big things right there. I see a lot of people who are trying to prove or disprove whatever it is they know based on a book, that whatever their book is, their one book. So if you introduce some new data to them, the first thing they'll say is, show it to me in my book. And that's not comparative research. So what I've found is that people who have been in these systems for an extended amount of time is that they've become very myopic in their study. So they prove and disprove their facts based on the bringer, which is their book. And I'm not saying truth. People say that they're facts. Cocky. And so that's a problem. It's that, but it's more so he represents your ability to not be afraid of your own power, to be able to speak your power into existence and not run from yourself. So when the lightning comes, you're not running because you know that lightning is nothing but you raising up your own energy. So even things that are occurring on the earth, whether it be the earth heating up and things happening, you recognize that, okay, this is only happening because it's happening inside of me. So Shango is like an energy that reminds you of that you are the center of the universe. He's symbolized also by the sun. You're the center, and everything that occurs in the universe has begun first in your inner verse. But never be afraid of your own power. So that's one of the things that I see often, is that people are just afraid of what they can do, and what they're capable of when they've spent an enormous amount of time in these systems.
I see. Well, you know what, you mentioned fear, because I do see fear as a major culprit between, really driving many systems out there, and why people don't leave sometimes because they feel that they may be damned, or they just, I guess fear is really the let's just say the bouncer at the door of their soul
Mm-hmm.
and learning anything else beyond that point. So with that in your system, I was just wondering, and I know that you follow the Orishas, and you actually have a very strong background in that area. Um, have you learned through your own system that there are more, let's just say, spiritual liaisons that you can attribute to within your own system, or honestly, has the doctrine of knowing about the origins that has driven you to the point of that's a finite point of, let's say, the essence of those spiritual, let's say, connections that you know of?
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is, I don't follow the Orisha. I teach Orisha sciences, but there are more Orisha. Orisha itself is a concept. Ori means head or consciousness, and Sa means to be seated or selected. So Orisha is just a selected, and it has nothing to do with anything that we already know. Cosmic root, because the primary expresses itself through various nature archetypes as well as elemental archetypes.
I see. Well, this excuse me, this time of I guess the century, lots of systems have been tried and tested. Many
Mm-hmm.
people have. I have seen many people grow very weary of many systems, and they're taking it into their own hands. They are really wanting to become their own omnipresent, their own omnipresence, if you will. They want to be their own
Mm-hmm.
God. They want to have the power. And I'm not sure, from a standpoint, if you could call it people going through a super ego charge, or if, in fact, people are giving the presence of gods or demigods, if you will, less power. What is your take on
Mm-hmm.
that? Because many people are really taking spirituality into their own hands, and I wouldn't say discrediting many of the spiritual deities that many people have come to lean on, but really calling it their own. I guess people don't feel as I guess people are growing weary in a
Mm-hmm.
way. So what do you feel about that?
Well, there's a proverb from Egypt, Kemet, that said when Horus was a baby, he was taken care of by the Neteru. But when Horus became a man, he ruled over the Neteru.
Mm.
And in this instance, to answer your question, to precursor it with that, I'm saying that at a certain level, you will petition these energies to take care of you. You will be completely dependent on astrological events and what your horoscope says today and what your numerology is. That's a level. And, that gets you to a place where you can kind of stand on your own feet. Once you stand on your own feet, you're supposed to move beyond that level. So now you're not serving those timetables and those events, but those events are serving you. Or depending on what you do, they don't even matter. So if you need to do a nightly ritual, you don't have to wait to the full moon. You just go do it at night. If there's a full moon, great. If there's not, well, I'm going to do it anyway because you're vibrating at that level. So I don't look to strip anyone
Do
of
you
anything.
have a
If a
lesson light
person
in the
still
inner
needs
system?
to
Where is
lean,
that there is a lesser and an evil and let's say a sense of goodness and the practice in what you do?
no, not at all. With my system, again, it's very customized to the student. At least For instance, you go through my entire system in 9 months, and then I don't want you as my student anymore. Previously, before I was teaching it from this way, I allowed people to stay for 2 years, and that was it. Then they had to go. So the key is you get your tools working with me, and then you go on and you figure out what you want your moral integrity to be. But there's no, well, don't steal out of the store. Don't do, that's on a spiritual and soul level, that stuff doesn't even exist. So there are no, I don't teach you how to run away from evil spirits or fight evil spirits or anything like that. I teach you how to embrace evil, and I teach you how to embrace what we would call being good or righteous, because there's transformation to be had from evil. And Eve El just really means the woman God, Eve and El. So again, a lot of times what we've been taught as concepts of being evil are really, like, it goes back to what you said in the beginning, where you said when you look at the root of a lot of these religions, you see a man. Well, what you see is a scared man. You see a scared man who's afraid because you have this woman here who can genetically annihilate him. So he removes her from the story most of the time, and he calls her evil, which is fine. It's okay to be evil, because El, El symbolizes that when you have an L at the end of something, we're talking about a God at this point. But the problem is now they tell you, yeah, evil is God, but that's the evil God. So, I'm sorry, that's the bad God. So if I were to teach morality from that perspective, I'd be a fool, because it changes. And that idea of good or bad, or even, and I don't want to say light and dark is a part of this. It's just polarities. So, I may teach about what's pleasant and what may be less pleasant in your life experience. But as far as the polarities or the extremes, it's just negative, positive, yin and yang, male and female, push, pull. That's it. And you have to know how to use each polarity and find yourself at the middle point.
Can you talk about that? Because I do know that it's out there on Amazon.
Sure. You're probably referring to the book Grasping the Root of Divine Power.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, that's a book. The divination system that's taught in there is the OB divination system. That's spelled OBI, and it's Yoruba based, and it's a system where it's often misrepresented. Most people, they've seen it. A lot of people who work in the spiritual systems, they've seen the simpler form with just like coconut, where you can get like a yes, no, maybe, type of answer. That's the 5 position, but it actually goes way, way, way deeper than that. I wrote that in the book because I had never really seen anyone teach the more profound aspect of OB divination using cowrie shells or what we call cola nut. So I taught that because one of the reasons I also did that is because a lot of times when you're in the Orisha tradition, you're not really taught divination for a long time, especially if you have what's called, again, a godparent. Whenever you need something read out, you have to go to your godparent. And that kind of cripples people for a long time. I've known people who've been in elays or houses, for 5-10 years and still don't know how to do readings for themselves, and in-depth readings. So that's a system that you can actually teach someone who's not initiated. In the Yoruba, the Orisha tradition, and when I say Orisha Yoruba, I'm also referring to the and the Lukumi and the Candomblé and Division 21 and the various other expressions of this Yoruba tradition. A lot of times, you have to wait for your initiation in these systems, which can be very expensive depending on, what your setup is. And I'm not one who's big on initiation today in 2012. We have evolved as a people and as a species, where now we've kind of been deposited a certain level of power that we didn't have before. So, traditionally, you would get initiated so that you could have profound or just contact with these archetypes, these Orisha. But now you have people, and I'm sure your listeners can attest to this, who will have dreams and a mermaid will talk to, or they'll have a dream and a man with his head on fire. These are all Orisha figures. You're talking about Yemoja, you're talking about Shango, and before, many, many, many years ago, that didn't happen. You would have to get initiated and have that around that energy. I'm building up a lot of hype around people learning and being able to, as you say, stand on both feet and walk with balance.
Yes, okay. Do you have anything coming up for the year 2013?
Yeah, I have some more lectures I'll be doing throughout the U.S. Actually, we're scheduling now. And a lot of those lectures are based on, again, rites of passage as well as social reform. I have 2 more books that will be coming out. One is on alternative power, which is, again, very spiritual and sacred to me, learning how to work with the planet. And I have another book coming out, which is a spiritual action series for teenagers. And it kind of helps to introduce young people into the more profound aspects of spirituality. So that will be coming out then. And in about another month, I'm going to be doing probably once a week twice a month, a live Ustream show. So that will be coming up in about another. So for anybody who wants to check me out there, they can go to Sadulu House, and the information will be there. And we'll be able to, exchange and dialogue together as a group.
Well, you're not going to have, goodness, do you ever get a chance to go to the movies?
Yeah, when I sleep, when I rest at night, I have very, very vivid dreams. They're very interesting. So
okay,
yeah, that's that's my entertainment.
This is your life, so there you go, and that's good. I can see that you help quite a few many people, and that's wonderful, because I can see that gives you the added strength. So that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, Haru, it's been wonderful having you on the show. It's been great. I really enjoy your system. I wish you all the best, because I can see that it's a very integrated system that's full of transformation as you go along, as you mentioned. It wouldn't be the system that it is unless you actually did transform, else it would be finite and at some point dissipate to the point of people actually, going against it at some point. But I can see that you give it for people to own and to reform into what they see fit and how it works best for them, their lives and souls, their soul's path. Yes, indeed.
Well, I want to thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
That did happen, actually. So it's been an interesting time. Lots of things that have come to news, and lots of things that have approached. So I guess it's part of the year, and that's what we have to look at. But I wanted to also say that this show is I believe about the 6th year in the making. So it's a little bit of an anniversary time in November. So it's been on the air for about 6 years. So thank you all for your support, and thank everyone for all their commitment and listening, and really, it couldn't have been without you, as they say. So there you go. If this is the first time listening to the show, just remember that this segment and all other segments is always archived by Blogtalk Radio and on my website. You can also pick it up on iTunes. Just do a search under, or just look up for Mona Magick. So that's MONAMAGICK. If you are listening, most likely you're listening via the internet. But if you aren't, you can also call into 877-404-0793. Alternatively, just do it via the internet. The internet is very easy. Just click on to Blogtalk Radio /Mona Magick. Before I go ahead into my show, I'd like to also to give a shout out to my sponsors. My sponsors have sponsored me throughout the years, I should say. I have to put the plural on there, and some of them have been on my show. Some actually just really just give me the I would say the support of what I do and the people who I have on my show. And first and foremost, I'd like to thank Grow Mambo at growmambo.com and Greg Kaminsky at theoccultpersonality.net. Greg is also too a very good supporter of this show at Mona Magick, and as well, and last but not least, Nick Thurcher at theoriginalfalcon.com. Nick has been on the show, and quite a few many people who Nick has actually published their books. And Nick is a very good friend. If you recall, I have had, I believe, about a good 6 authors from his particular publication that have been on my show. So again, Nick, thank you very much. When I was thinking of a title for this show tonight, it took me a while. It took me a while because usually you can narrow everything down that encompasses the topic in just a few words or less. But with tonight's guest, my special guest has dedicated his life, his total life, into really helping a lot of people into the paths and what they want to do. And that's a huge task, when you're helping someone spiritually, when you're really wrapping it all up and turning it around and making it all have sense. My guest has he's a cultural educator, an empowerment lecturer, initiated priest in the Nigerian Orisha tradition, and formal student of the Ifa priestly order. And that's a lot to actually put in all of that
learning
one
system that I've
category.
had. I'm a very loyal student, and that pretty much whatever you tell me to do, I'm going to do it. But within, on a soul level, I never totally felt like any one system or religion that I landed in was going to be home. So I always had my eyes directed much further ahead. So there never really had to be any self-hypnosis to deprogram any of the doctrine that would have been seeded down into me, because I always kind of knew that there was going to be a much longer and even more arduous and tedious end game than just learning someone's personal calculations that they wrapped into a system or a religion.
I see. So it pretty much acted like a melody into another melody, into one continuous long song that actually made music with you and music with your soul. So today, I would assume that allows you the ability to help other people who are into many multicultural different backgrounds, that you can actually help. Is that right?
Well, to a degree, it does help in that sense, but it also mainly helps people who have a notion, or like I did, and that a lot of the students and clients who I work with, they are in different religious systems. Some are very high up. I have a lot of high priests and priestesses that I work with, but and they can't really reveal to their constituents that they're not totally sure about what they're doing. So my experiences have allowed me to speak to a very wide gambit of people and understand what they're going through, because I've been there, but at the same time also understand that pulling, which is really indicative of the age that we're in today, which is, that age of being that knower, not really being the believer and trying to